Order. Order. Do sit down. Welcome back to the 12th sitting of the UK Youth Parliament in our House of Commons chamber. I am one of the Deputy Speakers of the House of Commons, and I'm absolutely delighted to be chairing your debates this afternoon. I know this morning we heard some brilliant speeches on the topics of discrimination on health and environment, and I know that Mr. Speaker was incredibly impressed by the quality of the speeches that were made this morning, and he asked me to pass on his congratulations to all involved. I also was delighted that we heard from the Shadow Leader of the House, Thangam Debonair, and the Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Digital Culture, Media and Sport, Paul Scully. I think their words were very encouraging, and I hope that you would agree with me on that. This afternoon, you will be debating health and education, the cost of living, and health and mental health. And I very much look forward to hearing your contributions. And at about 3:15 p.m, you will vote on which of the 5 subjects debated today will be the Youth Parliament's national campaign issue for 2023. Order. The Youth Parliament will now consider the 3rd motion of the day, education and health. The full motion is printed on the order paper, and I call Fayeza Islam from Yorkshire and the Humber to move the motion.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It is vital to explore the concept of what education is. The definition of education is said to be a purposeful activity directed at achieving certain aims. As young people, we require an essential education that can provide a solid foundation to progress into the lives that modern-day society entices us to live in. Unfortunately, this cannot be claimed as true. How can education affect health? Studies show that 4 more years of schooling can reduce your mortality rate by 16%. Young people are deprived of the necessary lessons that benefit them most, the lessons that they can take forward and apply into these lives that they will lead. The detriment this carries is astonishing, further hindering the ability for children to flourish in the future. Research has found that adults with significantly lower educational attainment are more likely to suffer from poor health compared to other population groups due to the inequalities caused by education. In 2019 to 2020, 1,991,183 people were admitted into the hospital for smoking-related issues. These figures are a terrifying reminder to us that we cannot stand idly by for much longer. The quality of the education we receive and our life expectancy should not be a positive correlation. The thought that our UK education system doesn't need reforming is simply a distant myth. This lack of education in serious topics such as financing skills, practical skills and political awareness has shown that too many of our constituents have been subjected to this inequality I speak about, and too many of our politicians are ignoring the plight of millions of young people that have been disadvantaged by the system of today. As the voice of young people, we can no longer let their voices go unheard by the government, and we have to do something about this. Many of us ask the same questions in lessons. How is this going to help us in real life? We are simply allowing people to become another statistic on a graph if we sit back and do nothing. It is imperative for schools to take action to tackle not only these issues, but also the devastating effects that have lingered in schools after the return from the COVID-19 pandemic. Every school nationwide needs a certified mental health counsellor to tackle the mental health spike in young people. The world is changing at a rapidly increasing rate, and established systems are struggling to keep pace. Education has the opportunity to equip young people with the skills to thrive. MYPs, I ask of you all to vote for this topic as the national campaign for 2023, as it not only affects the youth of today, but the youth of tomorrow. Thank you.
I now call Ruby Cardy, Scotland, to oppose the motion.
I'm not opposing it, I'm speaking for it. It's education. I'm Ruby, I have brown hair, and I'm wearing a blue pinafore, and I use she, her pronouns. I actually sat exams for the first time in May, and my palms sweat as they struggled to remember my candidate number, let alone a year's worth of content in those intense 3 hours. Education's key purpose should surround learning, yet it has evolved into a high-pressure, high-stakes environment which is totally detrimental to our health. Then how are exams a fair representation of my future? Much of the pressure created by them is societal. We hear all the time that without passing English you have no chance at uni, or life without secondary maths is destined for nothing. This pressure then amalgamates into mental and physical health conditions, being one of the key reasons for CAMHS referrals across the country. We spend over 32 hours a week in educational settings, but schools are not necessarily creating the vital, consistent support networks for when we're struggling under such pressure. And before you argue that this is to prepare you for a workplace, no one should be working under such scrutiny either. My health is at the mercy of my education. That isn't fair, that isn't safe, and that is by no means an environment for encouraging lifelong learning. And, you know, I happen to do well in those exams, and while they may work for a brain like mine, that doesn't make them the most equitable system. Health and delivery of education are unfairly at odds with one another, with alternative ways of thinking not being rewarded and alphabetized certificates failing to take into account our diverse environments. The COVID-19 pandemic forced us to rethink exams. Awarding systems evolved to include the acknowledgement of health and circumstances for all young people beyond the hard-to-reach extenuating circumstances form. So why are we regressing? Returning to a health-crippling, widened attainment gap perpetuating system, which just happens to be all adults have known for education. Rather than championing my health and my individuality, my 13 years, 2,470 days, and 14,820 hours of learning were reduced to a 3-hour exam. Thank you.
I thank Ruby Cardy for seconding the motion. The general debate is now open, and I would remind all speakers to state their name for the record when they stand up to speak, so that Hansard is able to record it properly. I call the Youth Parliament representative in the white shirt.
Deputy Speaker, my name is Martin Prinsloo, and I represent East of England, and within East of England, Essex. I thoroughly agree with this statement. In a year's time, where will you be? I might be in sixth form, you may be in university. Either way, when we finish school, we still lack the political, financial, and sustainable living education that we desire, that will give us a successful foundation for a successful career. Unfortunately, our education is out of sync with the current issues we face in our world. The last time our current education curriculum was reviewed was 2 years, 2 months, and 3 days ago. That is September 1st, 2020. And today, we have a chance to change that figure. We have a chance to improve the national curriculum. Lastly, our education system creates a divide in society. Let us create a subject that will unite us, so that our constituents and our next generations can have a bright and positive future. So please, vote for this motion.
call the youth member from the South East.
Ella Taylor from the South East. Mental health and education are both a huge part of young people's lives, so it's no surprise that they are deeply interlinked. 96% of young people say that their mental health has negatively impacted their schoolwork. So wouldn't it make as much sense as possible to give them loads of support? If that is so, then why is almost 2/3 of people saying they had no support at school? This is impacting their energy levels, concentration and optimism, and yet we still expect them to maintain a high performance. School is meant to be a safe place. Another purpose of school is to prepare you for later life. So shouldn't we teach them that when their mental health is worsening, that impacts how they handle stress, relate to others, and ability to make healthy decisions, that they should seek help, that is okay? Shouldn't we teach them of the symptoms of mental illnesses? Because at the moment, it's predicted 36% of mental disorders are undiagnosed, making it harder for them to access the treatment needed. How can we expect people to seek help if they don't know they need it? There are so many life-changing lessons that can not only help us now, but all throughout our older years and for the rest of our lives. Because our well-being and our mental health is becoming a bigger problem. It is increasing and it is impacting more people than ever before, and yet we still remain clueless. The first step to solving any problem is to understand it, and that is why education is so important.
I call the youth member from the southwest at the back there, in the tan suit, yes.
I'm Aya and I represent Bristol. So, what is education exactly? Education involves much more than merely attending classes and passing tests. The quality of a country's educational system will have a significant impact on the youth of today and the future generations. 52 out of 60 students that I questioned reported that the only person offering one-on-one career counselling at their secondary school was a subject teacher without any prior career counselling experience. Many students are led to believe that they would not have opportunities in the future if they do not perform well academically, especially in subjects like maths, English and science. One of the key factors contributing to rising violence and gang culture amongst young people is lack of information about careers and alternative pathways other than universities. Most careers advice is condensed into the stereotypical fields of medicine, law, engineering, etc. The career guidance given in schools has got to be more diverse in terms of what is discussed and who is given these opportunities, as this may demotivate pupils who could be less intellectually qualified and leads them to believe that there are no opportunities for them. To guarantee that all young people are receiving the same high-quality guidance on their futures and that all students feel confident in whatever path they may choose, ensuring they have all the information and options, a set careers advice curriculum developed primarily by experienced youth should be implemented in all schools across the UK. Although we would like to think otherwise, discrimination is still present in schools and higher education. The UK takes in roughly 38,000 refugees annually, 49% of whom are children and teenagers. They arrive in the UK with the aim of building a better life for themselves and their families, only to discover that their possibilities are fewer compared to those of everyone else. Their talents are frequently overlooked and they are made to believe that they will not make it very far and probably should not bother. Education is crucial. However, school is about more than just learning and achieving high grades. For many students, it serves as a safe place. It's crucial that school is a place we enjoy going to, as isn't the cause of some of the rising mental health issues amongst young people. We spend 5 days of our week there. Unfortunately, this is the case for many pupils. Approximately 68% of young people reported missing school because of their mental health. Additionally, some young people claim that rather than receiving support, their mental health issues were viewed as poor behaviour. Schools should aim to prioritise students' welfare and provide better support for any challenges that pupils may be facing in school or at home. Education involves much more than simply education as we know it. It should be given top priority. Given that we will spend almost 18 years of our lives in some sort of education, it is important that it be tailored to meet all of our requirements and it's something we have our way.
I call the youth member with the bow tie on from the northwest.
Thank you. My name is Billy Curtis and I'm the MYP for Trafford. Education plays an important role in everyone's life. Education enhances human knowledge. Education is a weapon that can turn your weaknesses into strengths. But we need to modernise the education system. I believe the majority of lessons in high school should be completely adapted, swapping pens and papers to computers and old-fashioned ways to our new way of life. To bring the education system into the 21st century, we have to use the greatest weapon we have, our voice. Thank you.
I call the youth member with the black jumper on in the third row. No.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm Makoda Strange, MYP for Midden East Devon. There is a mental health crisis, yet 3 in 5 young people say they receive no mental health support at school. I would like to share the personal experiences of 4 of my constituents. I was told to have a bath and hot chocolate, then I'd feel okay. I went to 4 GPs, and it was only the last one that helped, suggesting private treatment because of NHS waiting lists. This has cost my family over £2,000 so far. The minute I smiled, they disappeared. Young people shared that they would face fewer barriers trying to locate or travel to mental health services. They may receive earlier intervention. This would be most effective if it were at school. Teachers are working in increasingly stressful environments, and yet are also expected to be not only subject experts, but expert counsellors. Therefore, schools need to have more dedicated professional mental health support. This would quite literally save lives. Thank you.
I call the member in the white suit.
I'm Anastasia, Member of Youth Parliament for Hammersmith and Fulham in London. Members of Youth Parliament, we don't want to be intellectual fools. We want to be well-rounded individuals. We want to be people that are informed, people that know about the real world, people that care. At the minute, we are told a piece of paper with a number or letter on it determines our future. We are told our academic ability is our worth. We are no longer students, no longer people even. We are just statistics and grades. This is draining and dehumanizing. It has to change. Year after year, we see the detrimental effects the pressure of academic life has on us as young people. School stress has always been an issue, but it is much deeper than that now. Depression, anxiety, disorders, these are not teenage phases. This is real life. Unnecessary emphasis is placed upon exams, results, and professions. Not enough is placed upon the development of us as people with our own set of beliefs, values, and opinions. By voting for education and health as our priority campaign, we can come together and encourage regular discussion on our world. Curriculum for life, PSHE, life skills, these are the things that really matter. Academics may shape our jobs, but these will shape our character. As a young person, almost all of our time is spent in an institution. We spend more time in education than we do with our own families. We cannot afford to brush this off. Let's build and improve. Thank you.
I call the youth member from Northern Ireland in the tan skirt.
Thank you. My name is Lauren Bond and I'm from North Antrim. Speak out if you're struggling. This message echoes across schools throughout the country. Speak out if you're struggling. It's just a bad day, a bad week, a bad month. Am I struggling yet? It's just one night's missed sleep, one failed test. Am I struggling yet? It's sitting in school counselling thinking, I don't belong here because I'm not struggling yet. Being made to feel that I can only talk about my mental health when I'm struggling. Whilst we have a lot of work to do on early intervention and prevention with mental health, we need to change the message that we give young people in schools from the start, because no child should ever feel that they can only speak out about their mental health when they reach the point of struggling. We need mental health education to be relatable and realistic, and we need to speak with young people instead of to them. Emotional health cannot be condensed into a booklet. It cannot be put on a test. It has to be a conversation with young people. It has to understand their needs and it has to meet their needs, because no young person should ever reach the point of struggling. I'm not going to wait till I'm struggling to speak out. I'm going to speak out now, on the good days, the bad days, and everything in between, because mental health is not something that can only be talked about when you're struggling.
I call a colleague from Wales right at the end, at the back.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm Caris Megan James and I'm the MYP for Rhondda and Taff. As young people, we spend a lot of our time in education, roughly 180 days per year, equating to give or take 1,170 hours. And most of us do this until we're at least 16, which equates to a lot of time. Yet, why did 161 out of 189 of the focus groups we MYPs conducted tell us that there is a direct link between the pressure of exams in school and the deterioration of young people's mental health? Why was I told by young people that they weren't comfortable talking to their teachers or wellbeing officers about any problems they're facing? But it's not just mental health issues being raised, it's physical health too. Why are there not enough healthy food options in schools? And why is lunch so expensive? So, I urge all of you to vote for Education and Health to be our national campaign. The school system is failing young people, our health, our well-being. We need schools to provide effective care and support for young people. Crack down on bullying and be a warm, safe place for young people this winter. Thank you.
Call the member of the Youth Parliament from the West Midlands.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My name is Mohammed Al Hassan and I am the Member of Youth Parliament for Sandwell, which is a constituency in the region of the West Midlands. In terms of this motion and regarding education, in harmony with what my friend Anastasia said from across, she mentioned about a curriculum for life and how the motion on education requires a scope beyond secular education and academia, and I believe we can look at this motion from more of a cultural perspective. More specifically, something that I would like to coin as lad culture. I believe that young people have rightfully raised concerns about things like lad culture, catcalling and unnoticed behavioural misconduct from men towards women. For us to truly achieve egalitarianism and a fair definition of equality, young men must be educated and conditioned within school to understand how to appropriately treat women, and that some things are better left unsaid. Although it is wonderful that our previous Home Secretary had started a campaign regarding behavioural misconduct from men towards women and how men themselves can nip that sort of behaviour in the bud before it escalates into something further, more practical steps must be taken in order to truly uproot these sorts of attitudes. In the year ending March 2019, the Crime Survey estimated 25% of women aged 18 to 74 years, around 5.1 million women, had experienced some form of abuse before the age of 16 years. Therefore, I believe that we should call on the government to develop a mentoring system that will be implemented within schools in which young men are regularly given guidance on how to redefine chivalry in the context of the 21st century. We believe that these classes should teach young boys from around the age of 13 about the nature of the damaging porn industry, the toxicity of lad culture, how to make women feel safer via simple techniques, for example, things like crossing the road should you be behind her if it's past nightfall, and something as simple as even walking on the roadside when walking alongside a woman. Should this system be implemented within our education system, I believe that these issues surrounding violence towards women and girls will be efficiently ameliorated through our education system. Thank you.
I call the member in the top. Yes, that's it.
Hi, I'm Isabel Cosgrove and I'm from Knowsley. It's just outside Liverpool and it's a very small working class city. It's not very well known, but in my area a lot of people suffer, and especially when it comes to education. The topic of education in my area, when it comes to my age at 16, it's a really big issue. Post-16 options, they're not very offered to us, at all. And as a 16-year-old girl, I've just started college, but I have to travel an hour and a half on the bus every day to get there. So I'm completely reliant on my mum and on my dad to take me there every day. And I don't think it's fair that I should have to do that to access higher education. And I implore you all to vote on this motion so that we can make education more accessible, but also easier to get to, as it's completely unfair for people like me and others in my area who have to travel so far to get to places.
I call the youth member from Yorkshire and Humber in the blue suit, second row.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm Samuel Finn. I'm a Member of Youth Parliament for Doncaster in Yorkshire and Humber. Education and health is of huge importance to all young people, and it will be for generations to come. As we move towards exam season, our education is at the forefront of young people's future. As we continue to move out of the pandemic, young people countrywide are expressing their need for extra support. By the end of January 2022, 1.54 million young people access mental health support. Clearly, it's still needed, and we need this extra support, and it should be given in schools. Our education system should include history of all people, environment education, and mental health support. But no matter what, our education system should be reformed and improved. Thank you.
I call the youth member from the South East.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. My name is Adrija Zaman and I represent Horsham and Mid Sussex. Whilst I agree that our academics are important, there is an undeniable lack of support that comes with this. As I was undertaking vital mock exams in school, I was unfortunate enough to be hit by the suicide of a friend. Support came through, but it was severely lacking, and it only made me think of the atrocious systems in place to assist students in distress. Especially after COVID, student wellbeing has seen an extreme decline due to the lack of priority. If the government was so quick to throw us back into schooling, expecting us to immediately adjust to pre-COVID times, you would think that they would be considerate enough to provide a mental support system. But I can tell you now, there was no such support system in place. So, before I finish, I would like my fellow honourable MYPs to think not only of the mental support provided to the young people in their area, but to the mental support that was provided to you. Did you feel like your education was compromised? Do you feel like your mental health was prioritised? As I leave you with this thought, I'd like you to remember that if you prioritise this campaign, it could potentially be the reason for support given to us and the next generation. And after all, isn't that why we're here?
I'll call the youth member from the East Midlands in the blue suit.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Mohammed Ibadullah Malik from Nottinghamshire. High-quality education and a curriculum to prepare us for life are incredibly important topics to us as young people. We walk out of education knowing what the equation of a line is, but not about what our taxes are going to look like and how to get a mortgage. Our education system is clearly not fit for purpose, and with speculation of compulsory education to the age of 18, we call upon the government to not just top up our education system, but to overhaul it. However, currently in the UK, we are in a cost of living crisis, and the truth is, by not solving it, it's only going to further exacerbate all the other issues we face. Cost of living affects everyone, including young people, and there isn't enough being done to address that. Children and young people, including university students, are having to make extremely difficult and hard choices, some leading to malnutrition and long-term health effects. Not only this, but with public transport prices not capped for young people, some young people are paying upwards of £1,000 just to get to school. In Nottinghamshire, we are proud to have publicly owned transport for over 125 years, which has allowed us to have a bus pass, which is £268. Now, this isn't something that everyone in the UK has, and even £268 is not cheap enough. We call upon the government to have a nationalised £200 bus pass to make public transport more affordable for young people. Even this offering is regressive and less effective to the less fortunate in society. However, as intelligent young people, we know businesses and the government don't just have money to give away. And therefore, we know that nationalisation is a long-term option, not a short-term option. However, we've also seen that the effect of cost of living is not just affecting us older and maybe more wise people, but it's also affecting really young children. Nottingham Live reported that there are young people in school who are actually pretending to eat because they have no food and they haven't had that opportunity to eat that meal that day. And I think that's incredibly sad that there are young people in our society that are having to go through that. Therefore, I strongly urge you to vote for cost of living to be our main priority. It's not fair that young people have to go through what they're going through at the moment, and there is clearly not enough being done. By not voting for it, the disparities in skills and wealth across the UK will only become worse, and I strongly urge you to vote for cost of living. Thank you.
And before I call the next speaker, just a reminder that we mustn't refer to any cases that might be going on in the courts at the moment. I'm sure you'll appreciate that. Now, I called a colleague from the Northwest, just at the end there with the pink book.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm Izzy, a Youth MP from Wigan and Lee, and I can recite the quadratic formula. X equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. That flashcard was stuck on my wall for 3 months leading up to my GCSEs, ingrained into my memory, ready to recall and apply to a question which may or may not come up on my maths paper too. Funnily enough, it did come up on my paper, and I was prepared to answer it. However, there are a whole host of things that I have never been taught, things which will never be on an exam, and that no amount of revision notes blue tacked to my wall will prepare me for. The education system is supposedly created for young people. So please, listen when we say it is failing us. We are picked up, put down and strapped into a never-ending conveyor belt of academic testing. For years we've been calling for a curriculum for life, a curriculum which will see us leaving school with a greater understanding of the world around us. We are pleading for more emphasis on employability, communication skills and personal well-being. Isn't the foundation of education creating well-rounded, well-informed young people ready for the future? So why do I, after spending 14 years in countless classrooms, feel so unsure about what's to come? Young people are more than just letters or numbers that they see on a piece of paper in mid-August. We are not a percentage of A stars to Cs. We are not evidence in an Ofsted report, and we are not a pass or a fail. The pressure students are under to perform is excessive, with the 2015 reforms in particular seeing an increase in content and more emphasis on examinations. Memorising has become a synonym for learning, and mental health has suffered as a consequence. Well-being must become a priority, and nurturing the development of young people as individuals should be the aim of education, not exam results. So no, I don't know how to maintain a good mental health. I don't understand how to pay tax, and I have no idea what I want to be when I grow up. But go on, Madam Deputy Speaker, ask me, and I'll tell you all about the quadratic formula.
I call the Member of the Youth Parliament from Scotland.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My name is Hamish Knott. I am an MYP from the Highlands and Islands. I use he, him pronouns and have brown curly hair, and I'm wearing a navy blue suit and tie. Health. A vital part of any educational environment, even before the learning starts, is an issue that people have been made increasingly aware of since COVID. To cope with this, even before the pandemic, schools were likely to use PSHE as a front, a subject in Scotland usually delegated to the lowest level possible, in which young people learn about drugs, smoking and eating disorders, depending which school you go to. To solve this, I believe the solution is simple: to create a straightforward, youth-led, youth-focused PSHE curriculum which directly addresses the reality that health challenges can bring to academic attainment, and use our campaign to highlight the issues that young people would like addressed in PSHE, such as social justice, citizenship and equality. Furthermore, I call on the UKYP to introduce mandatory training sessions on devolution to coincide with this campaign, to increase understanding of how this campaign may look across the United Kingdom. Thank you.
I call the Member of the Youth Parliament from Gloucestershire to conclude the debate.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm Adele Long, representing Cheltenham and Tewkesbury. Who are the true beneficiaries of the education system? When there have been so many losses, what have we gained? Some say it's expats like me, finding it easier to call me a model minority, a pupil docile but somehow superhuman and stress-free. Yes, ma'am, I can rattle off my 54 liberties in a UNCRC, as is expected of a proper English child. My most favorite is my right to the best possible health. My emotional well-being is a fortress guarded by heavy legalese. Yet to survive school counseling and PS6G lessons with the side eyes I so detest, I still must mimic the monolingual MPs who frequent our TVs. Ignoring the fact that they can trade off my existence as a state-educated Hong Kong migrant on a whim or a half-baked racial epithet. With that goes my access to a quality education, a class that I can spend with a full stomach, and by extension, my opportunity to gain social mobility. A note to those on the green benches, with horribly preoccupied for one day a year since 2009. Take a good look at the many you've othered from the education system. This very broken system you force us all to engage in, denying them a healthy environment for growth by simply shipping them away. Look at me. I am far from one of those overseas heiresses with a guaranteed backdoor to Oxbridge or Russell Group University, stopping by high street shops and taking public transport because I just adore volunteerism. This is not enough. In a race to the bottom with our well-being as the price paid, there are no winners. There are no such beneficiaries. I will not bore you with the claim that we are more alike than different, or virtual signaling something of the kind about who is deserving and who is not. Too often, it's awareness used as a placeholder for action. Instead, I invite you to reclaim a liberty initially yours, perhaps the only commonality between us all, a diverse group of MYPs that cannot be reduced by a one-size-fits-all system. The power to make education and health work for you. MYPs, we will not outlive reform if it is done by the increment. This is a problem not only of class, not only of education, but of an impending revolution. Vote for education and health as your priority campaign today. Thank you.
Order. That concludes the third debate, and the Youth Parliament will now consider the fourth motion of the day, cost of living and health. The full motion is printed on the order paper, and I call the Member of Youth Parliament from Harrow to move the motion.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The cost of living crisis. It is a term that has been featured in every headline, every news article, and been politicised relentlessly. But for millions of us, this is more than just a headline. It is a harsh reality faced day in and day out. The fact that there are people in this country who are uncertain as to where they're going to find their next meal is simply unacceptable. In 2020 to 2021, 4.2 million people were living in food poverty. In April 2022, 15.5% of UK households ate less or went without eating because they could not afford food. If these statistics weren't concerning enough, Britain has had to resort to opening warm banks as temperatures plummet this winter. These warm banks are heated buildings where people who cannot afford to heat their homes are able to visit for just a few moments of comfort. These measures, although incredibly necessary, mark a desperate state of crisis in the UK, and in many crises as such, it is unfortunately our most vulnerable who suffer the most. My friends, we are here today to ensure that the youth voice is heard. Our generation must not suffer in silence as politicians prioritise corporate interests over the 2.5 million children living in food poverty. This government has enabled energy companies to report record-breaking profits, whilst families have to choose between heating their homes or feeding their children. There is no justification, no priority greater than combating this gross deprivation of a basic human right. This is not the time to stand idly by. It is the time to act, to campaign and to lobby to ensure that our children do not have to go to sleep hungry or cold. We say that our children are our future. But then why do we continue to fail them? To not provide them with the most basic of necessities, a good meal and a warm home. Thank you.
I call the Member of Youth Parliament from Lancashire to second the motion.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm Ishan. I'm the Member of Youth Parliament for Burnley and Pendle in the North West. When we discuss the cost of living, we propose a solution of financial support. But we aren't asking the right questions. What kind of support is offered? And is it accessible to everyone who needs it? Schools and colleges offer free school meals and bursaries to the students with a certain household income. The issue with this is it doesn't take into account the number of residents or their individual needs. So it's not the case of throwing more money into the equation. It's about fixing the system that is already in place. Another example, the cost of living means an increase in the price of our everyday essentials. These additional costs can and has, in many cases, forced people out of their homes. This is a largely recognised issue, especially amongst young people, and we're not doing enough to tackle it. To acquire housing under our current policy, there are so many hoops to jump through, and this is dehumanising, implying that a small mistake can be the difference between having somewhere to stay at night or sleeping rough. This is the very flaw that urges people not to seek support when they need it most. Poverty has been shown time and again to negatively impact health outcomes in the average child. It's also important to mention that, yes, inflation is a root cause in the financial crisis we are suffering, but there are other factors that need to be dealt with. Energy companies raise their prices not only in accordance with the rate of inflation, but to deepen their own pockets, increasing their own revenue and their own profits. This year, Shell, the energy and oil giant, has reported £11.5 billion of revenue in the second quarter, a 109% increase from last year's £5.5 billion. How can management of these huge corporations sleep at night and profiteer whilst young people and their families are having to make decisions nobody should have to make? MYPs, we are the 6th largest economy on the planet. Yet so many of our citizens have to rely on food banks and heating banks. Why? Vote to make this our 2023 campaign so we can change this now. Thank you.
I call the Youth Parliament member from Wales at the back.
Hi, I'm Rihanna and I'm the MYP for Blaine and Gwent. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The cost of living crisis is becoming an increasing concern for the people in the UK. It affects everyone. Youth employment is the lowest it's been. Long-term unemployment is still higher than pre-pandemic levels. Increasing gas and electricity costs, food and transport costs and housing costs is only pushing our budgets. Young people with student loans will face a crisis when trying to pay their student loans. We need to ensure that young people are not forgotten in the policy discussions that impact our present and future. According to Action for Children, nearly half of children surveyed say that they worry about their parents in this challenging time. Children and young people's stress levels are rising. Can you believe that? Children, their stress levels are rising. It's presenting itself in challenging behaviour at school and at home. It affects young people and adults, and I cannot stress that enough. Why should we not get a say in the things that affect us? At this point, we do not know the full impact of the cost of living crisis. The next 18 months are crucial. Mental health and well-being will see a rapid decline if we do nothing. Physical health will see a rapid decline if we do nothing. While listening to you all speak today, I've constantly heard about the cost of living crisis. We need to do something. I urge you to ensure that we don't experience the full effects of this crisis. Vote for the cost of living and health. Let us do better and allow us to have a say in the issues that will affect us for years to come.
I call the colleague from the East Midlands in the Grace North East.
Luke Hall, representing South Tyneside from the North East of England. Right now in England, 800,000 children are living in poverty but not eligible for free school meals. There is a responsibility on all of us here to tell those in power that this great injustice will not be tolerated. No child should be held back by hunger. Rising rents and crippling energy bills mean that more and more children and their families are being put in a severe financial hardship every single day. This is not good enough. We need more. We are demanding more. Making sure that children have access to at least one meal a day can be truly life-changing for those living in poverty, and as representatives of young people from across the country, we must make this a priority at a time where 1 in 3 11-year-olds are at risk from diet-related ill health. 1 in 3. I believe government has a critical role to play in making sure each and every child has the food they need not only to be healthy, but to thrive. This can easily be done. As a Youth Parliament, we must call on the government to extend free school meal eligibility to all children from families on universal credit and provide the crucial support they need during one of the greatest cost of living crises we have ever seen. The government can and must ensure that every child has the right to healthy food they need to do well at school, but it's also up to us to vote for the cost of living and health to be a priority and fight for the health of every single child in the UK.
I call the colleague from London. South East.
I'm Michael Richardson, and I'm an MYP for Kent. According to the Office for National Statistics, in the 109 kilometres I travelled between Dover Priory and London Victoria this morning, I moved from one of the top 4% most deprived neighbourhoods in the UK to one of the top 50%. Starting off with little to begin with, young people living in deprived areas are not likely to value education. No matter how much work the education system puts in, an unwilling student with a disengaged family cannot succeed. How much harder will a young person from Dover have to work compared to one from Westminster? When the education system failed them, what use is it to their children? Is it not crystal clear that this cycle of deprivation needs outside intervention to be broken? Why then are we standing idle as families kicking and fighting to stay afloat are being dragged under into this cycle? This August, Citizens Advice gave out 6,500 more food bank vouchers than in August 2021. This clear divide between the haves and the have-nots and the cycles that keep them there are intrinsically linked to racial divide, environmental impact, antisocial behaviour and mental health. What can be more important than making a fairer, safer, healthier UK for future generations by tackling the root of all the problems we will discuss today? Poverty. Thank you.
Call the colleague from the East of England.
I'm Ewan Harris, MYP for West Norfolk, East of England. Spin the wheel, we'll pay for your heating. It's a phrase I would only have thought to have read in a dystopian novel. Because that's where the UK is scarily going. With food banks, now warm banks, and homelessness on the rise, the UK is worryingly slipping to a dystopian-esque situation where the people are struggling so much just to eat basic meals. The government are being negligent, and we should push them to stop infighting and start fighting to push to feed not just young people, but all people in the UK.
I call the colleague from the northwest in the white trousers. Sorry, yes.
Thank you, Deputy Madam. Wait, did I get that wrong? Sorry. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Young people's physical and mental health is already being affected by the cost of living crisis. With the cost of living crisis taking hold, 2 in 5, 38%, say their mental health has suffered. A quarter, 23%, of young people from ethnic minority groups have struggled to pay for essential goods and services, and almost 1 in 5 say their education grades have suffered. Cost of living crisis is affecting young people dramatically, and it can be surely proven through statistics, such as those I've just stated. However, if those in charge are failing to take action, then who are they to stop us from trying to tackle this matter? At this point, it is up to us to make a major change, because it's not only affecting us, but those around us and the next generation. Thank you.
Now, would the member from the northwest just state her name so that Hansard?
My name is Lois Adela, and I'm representing Manchester.
Thank you. The colleague from Northern Ireland in the suit there.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My name is Niall McGrattan, and I represent South Down. In June 2022, the campaign group, the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, published the results of a survey of households in the bottom 40% based on household earnings. It found that 60% of these households had gone without at least one essential since the start of 2022. The status quo is inequitable. It certainly was not these people's fault, yet they must bear the tremendous burdens. A welfare state ought to protect these people. Instead, the government offers incompetence and party theatrics. There is, however, no other burden more urgent than the one we're debating now. We are, of course, concerned with the impact that has been left on young people. And whilst it may not affect us in exactly the same way it affects our parents, there are nonetheless severe and lasting implications. A new report conducted by The Independent has found nearly half of young people have fears about not having enough money to buy essentials, while more than a third are planning to leave education in order to find jobs. The cost of living crisis pressures families from lower income backgrounds to abandon their academic pursuits and indeed their chances at a better life. People feel trapped in dystopian nightmares as they're forced down the same poverty-stricken rabbit holes as their parents and grandparents. People in a modern, prosperous Britain should have the right to self-determination. No one should feel they are predeterminedly poor. And whilst I can appreciate this does not seem like such an important matter for every member here, it matters incredibly to those who do not have easy routes out of poverty. For some, the thought of being forced to abandon their education because of circumstances entirely out of their grasp is a hellish scenario. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm sure the entire room would agree that young people are acquainted with enough burdens as it is, without the introduction of severe financial ones too. Whilst prices soar, mental health drowns. What we have is not sustainable. Young people feel alienated and desperate. If there is not a tremendous display of unity and courage, then the situation will only get worse. Thank you.
The MYP from London.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My name is Sudan Astop. I am of Turkish heritage and I am the Member of Youth Parliament for the London Borough of Hackney. Thousands of young people that we represent today are worried that they won't be able to afford food this winter as the cost of living crisis spirals. As my peer said, a new report has found that 46% of young people have fears about not having enough money to buy essentials. whilst more than a third are planning to leave education to get jobs. My fellow friends, are we not the future of this country? As young people, we should not be worrying about when our next meal will be. We should not be questioning whether we should continue with our dreams and our education or feed and shelter ourselves. In Germany, students and welfare recipients have already received double their usual support payments to assist with heating homes. I urge this House to vote for this motion, as our government must intervene and provide our young people universal support packages before the bright stars of our constituencies slip right through our fingers into the depths of child poverty and destitution and give up on their dreams just to stay alive. Thank you.
Call the MYP from Yorkshire and the Humber in the blue suit.
Me. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My name is Tahid Khan and I am the Member of Youth Parliament for Wakefield in the Yorkshire and Humber region. Madam Deputy Speaker, the cost of living crisis is by no doubt the most pressing current issue affecting us and all of the people that we represent. There are now more food banks than there are branches of McDonald's. People are having to choose between eating or heating. One of the many problems that has been increased in this cost of living crisis is food poverty in schools. This is something I have been campaigning about, and it gives me privilege that I have support from several MYPs, just as my honourable friend, the Right Honourable MYP for Greenwich, pointed out this morning. Last week, Madam Deputy Speaker, I spoke to a young constituent. She contacted me. She said that she wants to go to school to learn, not to worry about how she's going to eat. Colleagues, in a year's time, I want to see that this same young girl is now thriving in school because of the actions and the decisions that we make today. As an organisation, UK Youth Parliament has always been defined by doing the right thing. We never have and we never should walk by on the other side of the road. We need to take decisive action now. And my view, Madam Deputy Speaker, is that we must now confront this issue. And that is why I ask my colleagues to vote for this motion today. Thank you.
I call the MYP from the North West right at the end there.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My name is Braden Irvine and I represent South Ribble, Lancashire. Hundreds of thousands of young people will go to sleep tonight worried about their future in the coming months. They will worry because schools are choosing between heating or food for their children. This is a path that we cannot continue down. This is a path which is beyond outrageous in a modern society. This is of the utmost detriment to all the progress that we have made in the last years. And I wonder whether it is what our forefathers who built this modern society would have wanted for Britain today. Thank you.
I call the MYP from the southwest at the back. Yes, in the black dress.
Hi, I'm Scarlett. I'm the MYP for Plymouth, representing the southwest.
The easy thing to say on the cost of living crisis is that families like mine are missing one meal a week to afford our weekly shop, and in my case, even more. My mum is disabled and my dad is a full-time carer for her, and me and my siblings are all young carers. Even with all the benefits we get, we can hardly afford our weekly shop. Why is it that most budget items have gone up the most? Every item in our weekly shop has been up by 14%. Our weekly shop has increased from £150 to £220 for 6 people in my house. This is a disgrace that in a well-developed country like ours, children are skipping meals to save money. In my school, I can barely afford a decent lunch, let alone all my siblings. I urge you all to vote for the motion to help make a difference. We must help our families in need. Thank you.
Call the MYP from the southeast.
My name is Lily Williams and I represent East Sussex. I am the MYP specifically for Hastings and Rother. Many young people around the UK are being affected by the cost of living crisis, whether that be through mental health issues such as anxiety and depression due to the severity of the crisis, or having to take up new jobs to help fund their family. No young person should have to support their family at a young age by taking up extra work, on top of the usual stresses of school and being a teenager. Growing up in this economy is disgraceful. The cost of living is now an issue for young people. Hastings is one of the lowest income towns in England and one with the most child poverty. Some constituents have even said, "I feel like there is no way out." I am just a 13-year-old girl, and I see the impact of cost of living crisis daily in my school. Students like ourselves are having to disrupt their education in what is one of the richest countries in the world to help support their families. I think it is unacceptable that people are worrying about feeding their families and having hot water. This should be a basic human right. We need to change this. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I call the MYP from Scotland.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My name's Dean Collins and I represent Central Scotland. I've got short brown hair and I'm wearing a grey check suit. Too often, when being reported, the cost of living crisis is seen that it mainly affects families. However, it is forgotten the effects on young people, especially students. With the prices of fresh produce skyrocketing and the twin set of gas and electricity also becoming unaffordable for those in private sector accommodation. So much so that unis are suggesting to come to the library to get a heat. I think we can all agree that this is not the standard that we should be giving our university students. As it has been mentioned before, 46% of young people have fears about not having enough money to buy essentials, and 1/3 are planning on leaving education to get jobs. In a time where we should be trying to close the education attainment gap, why are we giving it space to grow? Many families are struggling and in some cases cannot afford the upkeep of urgent life care. I think all members agree we should no longer live in a world where we need to choose between life and putting a meal on the table for our families. Thank you.
Now I'm going to take a colleague from the West Midlands, yes?
Madam Deputy Speaker, my name is Hassan and I represent West Midlands, Birmingham. The cost of living crisis is forcing families to make decisions that no one should have to make, especially after the damage that COVID-19 has had on their finances. As members of the Youth Parliament, we should do something to provide support to these people, having to choose between heating or eating. Thank you.
I now call the member of the Youth Parliament from Suffolk to conclude the debate.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I begin by thanking you all for your impassioned views on the topic. I understand what a difficult thing it is to talk about, and your views, I'm sure, are put far more articulately and far less waffly than what I'm going to do. To begin, I would like to amend the title of this motion and actually call it what it is, and that is a cost of greed crisis, not a cost of living crisis. While people can barely heat their homes, those that provide this heating are posting record profits. In the second quarter of 2022, Shell made £18 billion. Meanwhile, every day, the impossible decision has to be made by parents. Do I feed my child, or do I put the heating on? This is a disgrace. In a country which claims to be a model nation for the rest to follow, how are we still having people choosing which of their basic human rights to exercise? Young people in my constituency and yours will suffer and bear the brunt of this. Young people should not have to go home and worry about if there will be a meal for them or if they will be freezing in their beds. But that is the situation we are in. We are in a crisis in which every single young person will feel it does not discriminate. And the truth is, it is avoidable. Completely, utterly and depressingly avoidable. Madam Deputy Speaker, this winter things will only get worse. With inflation at 10.1%, everything is more expensive, but yet wages, as normal, remain stagnant. To do nothing is a choice, and it is the wrong choice. I urge you all to join me to say that we call on the UK government to finally properly intervene. We call on them to tax those that are making these record profits, to put together support packages for those that need it most. We call on them to ensure that every child that needs one is finally given a free school meal. We call on them to stop their blissful ignorance and finally act. How can we claim to represent the key issues of the young people in which we were elected to represent if we simply stand by and watch them freeze and starve? I urge each and every one of you to make this the national campaign, because together we can and we will solve this issue for the children of Britain. Thank you.
Order. That concludes the fourth debate on today's order paper. I thank each and every one of you for the contributions, and the Youth Parliament will now consider the fifth and final motion of the day, which is on mental health. The full motion is printed on the order paper, and I call the Member of the Youth Parliament from Dudley to move the motion.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Before I begin, I want to say that this topic may be triggering or distressing for some, as we will be mentioning various topics to do with mental health throughout our speeches. How would you feel if you had to wait years to get your thoughts heard? Sadly, this is the harsh reality for thousands of young people in today's modern society, and it is getting out of control. Longer and longer waiting lists are causing those who have reached out for support to suffer even more. Did you know that more men commit suicide than women? Did you know that suicide is a leading cause of death for those aged 5 to 19? Did you know that one person every 40 seconds loses their life to suicide? There are innocent lives being taken away by this ongoing silent epidemic. This is because of the lack of support out there and the lack of active effort to make sure young people can access services. If there was a national campaign led by the UK Youth Parliament focusing more on how to get help for mental health, then this would lead the change. Websites designed to offer support need updating to have better security, as people do not feel safe to use them. In a focus group led by my region, 50% said that existing services were understaffed and majorly underfunded. We want a campaign for the government to make an active effort in creating more services so that everyone can access support, as well as putting more funding towards those services, because right now there is simply not enough. In this year's Make Your Mark results, the highest voted topic was health and wellbeing, meaning that young people who voted believe that this topic should have a campaign and believe it should be mental health, as issues are rising tremendously. In our focus groups, mental health was a reoccurring topic, as people told us that schools need to do more to support young people, exam stress is worse than ever before, and that social media is one of the main reasons why mental health is on the decline. We need to make this change for young people. I urge you to consider mental health as the topic you vote for. Thank you.
I call the Member of the Youth Parliament from Belfast South to second the motion.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm Izzy Fitzpatrick, representing South Belfast in Northern Ireland. Mental health issues are an epidemic, so why isn't our government treating it like one? 1 in 6 young people were identified as having a mental health problem last year, and suicide is the leading cause of death for young people in the UK. Our mental health services must be there for everyone, but the reality is it is a postcode lottery. The reality is that the mental health budget in Northern Ireland is 27% less than in England. The reality is that depression and anxiety rates in Northern Ireland are 25% higher than in other UK nations. And the staggering fact is that only 6% of the health budget in Northern Ireland is directed towards mental health services. This is the unacceptable reality. We cannot wait for young people to be in crisis before mental health services become available to them. We need a holistic approach to tackling mental health issues, and that starts with early intervention and prevention. 1 in 3 mental health problems in adulthood is directly connected to an adverse childhood experience. The impact on our mental health can be devastating and lifelong. Last year, there were more than 800,000 domestic abuse-related crimes recorded in England and Wales. Children and young people were affected mentally, either directly or by witnessing abuse of a parent. This is not recorded, nor is the hidden death toll of suicide due to domestic abuse. Where in the suicide statistics do we see the number of victims of domestic abuse who take their own lives? Last year, 20% of female victims of abuse accessing refuge services had previously tried to take their own life. Madam Deputy Speaker, the death toll is rising. This week, we have heard in the news that for the first time, a coroner in the UK has explicitly recognised the link between domestic abuse and suicide. The government must properly fund all mental health services, including specialist support services and counselling services for survivors. Women's Aid received less than half the funding it estimated was required for its essential services last year. The epidemic is all around us. It is here in this chamber today. We, as youth MPs, can use our vote to demand change, and demand it now. Thank you.
I call the member from the North East, Negracie.
My name is Ibrahim and I'm an MP and MYP for Gateshead in constituency in the North East. Whilst this is very important, I believe we must look at the root causes. When a tree is sick, you don't look at the branches to diagnose it. You look at the root, and the root for the rise in mental health cases is the cost of living crisis. As families are paying through the teeth just to keep themselves alive. People are working harder and harder when the outcome is hardly working. We need to take action now and stop children worrying about financial instability. I call on the government to address the rise in energy bills in April 23 of up to a staggering £4,000 a month. I call on it to deliver economic credibility and economic stability for this generation and the next. We need to restore the good name and reputation to British politics after the mockery it faces from international leaders abroad, and lead the UK in addressing the cost of living crisis and helping Ukraine against Russia. What young people need from this government is what young people should get from this government. Thank you.
I call the member from Wales at the back. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm Magda. I represent Carmarthenshire. My mental health has been thoroughly affected by the education system. How education is taught to young people of today is a disgrace. Our education system isn't created for people to grow and flourish. It is created so we fit into a box. And if you need proof of that, just look at the money being taken out of our creative industries and put into essential studies, squandering our individuality and setting us on a one track to go into jobs that only benefit our government. As the head of Ofsted has warned, teaching to test rather than teaching the full curriculum leaves pupils with a hollowed out and flimsy understanding. I don't want to be taught how to find the area of a 3D shape. I want to be taught how to be financially safe, how to do my taxes, and how to take out a mortgage. Isn't that what we need to survive in these days? Personally, my mental health in school has suffered. This is because the system doesn't care about us. No, it cares about our uniform and how well we behave, not helping us to learn and prosper. This is wrong. When I have taken mental health days from school, I have been told it is not an excuse and I'm going to fail my GCSEs because of it. I'm not the only one. It's not just my school. There are schools all over the UK where young people are experiencing the same thing. I will not sacrifice my mental health to get an education anymore. We need to change our education system today for the young people of tomorrow.
I call the member from Scotland.
Hello, my name is Fatima Ghanem. I'm representing Scotland, Glasgow. I'm wearing blazer, light blue, white, with white scarf. My pronouns is she, her. So, no young person should suffer from poor mental health. No one should have to wait for so long to get support. I would like to say that I believe everyone should know whatever topic you will be voting for as a priority is indifferent, because all of them are important and are affecting young people in some ways. Each of them covers a story of a young person that suffered from mental health issues. Mental health always has been a significant issue, especially after the pandemic. So many young people were struggling and couldn't get the support they needed. Mental health is important, and we all should campaign for improvement of mental health services. As Emma Pratt, founder of Project Sonrisa, said, representation surrounding mental health in the media is vital in tackling the stigmas. Everyone has mental health, therefore everyone should be able to access mental health services. Thank you.
I call the youth member from London.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My name is Chris Mutombo Ramazani, and I am the MYP for Brent in London. Mental health is a completely salient issue, and it comes in a number of guises. For instance, with eating disorders such as anorexia and bulimia, which are on the rise today. What we ought to do as a youth parliament is to break down the stigmatisation of mental health, enhancing what exists in the mental health services, and recognising that this is a growing problem ever since the COVID pandemic has kept us all away from the real world, isolated from each other, and worsening our relationships with the natural world and with society itself. I wanted to leave you with this idea. If there is an elephant in the room and we do not deal with it, then we will eventually become trodden on by the elephant. If we don't look at the obvious problem with mental health, we will all be affected by its demise. Thank you.
I call the member from the southwest. Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My name is Yusuf Al-Mosi. I represent Wiltshire East in the southwest. And I'm not going to repeat what my friends and colleagues have said so eloquently, passionately, and in great detail. I'm going to highlight something different that hasn't been covered yet. The fact that mental health is a cycle, whether in a positive or a negative way. Studies show that parents with a generally positive mental well-being will give birth and bring up children with a positive mental well-being. As great as that sounds, there's another side to this. The NIHR, the National Institute of Health and Care Research, states children are 22% more likely to develop depression if their mothers had depression during pregnancy, 55% more likely if the mother had depression during the child's life, and 73% in the long term. Our future children as possible future parents. By voting for mental health, we can redirect this negative and dooming cycle to one of a better well-being and mutual benefits. As Mr. Speaker said 2 hours ago now, we are the future, in a literal and a symbolic sense. We're the future because we can shape it, and more importantly, shape the future generations that come along with it. Thank you for your time.
I call the member from the northwest in the pink there.
I am Eleanor Holt and I'm MYP for Salford. Mental health affects us all no matter what age we are. We all go through it. And I'm pretty much every motion so far today has made me reflect on the fact that mental health affects every aspect of young people's lives. So why don't we have more accessible services for young people? After all, doesn't it affect us all? The COVID-19 pandemic had a major impact on mental health worldwide. COVID has affected mental health in two manners, both indirectly and directly. Indirectly, the effects of chronic stress, lockdowns, isolation, and decrease in social interactions are self-evident. So I urge you to vote for mental health so the government can make a more active role in helping young people. Thank you.
I call the member from Yorkshire and Humber holding the orange. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My name is Jola Omani and I represent Yorkshire and Humber. In 2017, it was said that 1 in 9 children, according to the Health Organisation, had been diagnosed with a mental health issue, and it had tripled to 1 in 6 by 2021. This just tells you that the schemes that we have in place need to change. Just imagine the young adults that have slipped through the cracks, losing their spark. As a generation of people that want to change, let's stop talking about the changes and put it into motion. There are 3 topics we need to talk about. This is the waiting scheme. It's an unimaginable maze that needs to be put straight. We are playing with human lives here. We need a scheme where people get urgent help, but to do this, we need more staff. Our staff are struggling. We've had schemes like this done before, for example, like the HIV campaigns to stop the stigmas of mental health, the first aid trainings that we have seen in secondary schools and universities. The third thing, they have said in government they are placing £150 million to mental health, yet we are not seeing the outcomes. Us as a group need to demand this change and need to make schemes that benefit us. Let's not fail each other.
I call the member from the South East.
Thank you. I'm Leon Whiting. I'm the MYP for Milton Keynes North. And year upon year, mental health is voted as a top issue by young people. In fact, it's so important that it's been tied into every single topic we've debated today. Young people think it's so important it's been raised again and again, even in face-to-face focus groups, which is so difficult to raise it in. Coming out of a global pandemic, we as MYPs have a duty to all young people in the UK, and that duty is to improve mental health services and remove the stigma around mental health issues. It has been made abundantly clear how much young people care about this, so please vote for this issue.
I call the colleague from the east of England in the cream jumper.
My name's Ailish Campbell. I'm from the east of England. People who experience mental health disorders often feel isolated from those around them, but no one should have to suffer alone. In recent years, there has been a mental health epidemic, with wait lists spanning years and services unable to cope with the ever-increasing demand. This is a disgrace. When young people go to seek help, they should be able to get it. We should treat mental health when we walk into the... We should treat mental health like we treat anything when we walk into A&E, for example. We expect to be immediately treated within hours. Any more than that is an outrage. When we approach our GP for mental health support, we can expect to wait months, if not years. And that is the norm, and it shouldn't be. It is of pivotal importance that we give mental health support the funding it deserves across the UK as a whole, to ensure that no child becomes an empty statistic.
I call the colleague from London.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm James Blokey and I'm Member of Youth Parliament for Westminster. Mental health was one of my priorities I was elected on as MYP. So when it came to running a focus group on health and wellbeing, I was particularly interested in what can be done and what young people in my constituency thought needed to be done. What I found, and I think many of you will agree, is there was a big issue with how teachers address young people who are struggling. They don't know how to. They're not compassionate enough. I think many of you will agree that's the case. So when I learned about mental health first aid, I believed that it's important, that is a route that's important because teachers having clear understanding of mental health is necessary to ensure the experiences of my peers are treated with respect and they receive the support that anyone who is struggling with mental health deserves. If we want to improve the mental health of young people, we need to improve and add to the services available. CAM's waiting lists are too long. It's been said many times. Early intervention support is necessary to help young people before they get to the point of needing specialist support. However, do I think mental health issues are so prominent solely because of the lack of services? No. I believe that getting young people to speak out is equally as much of a task. Speaking out is a difficult thing to do. Believe me, I know myself from my own experiences. And that's why destigmatising mental health is crucial. The Make Your Mark report revealed that exam stress was the leading mental health issue nationwide. It's understandable. Today's students face an ever-growing pressure to achieve in the assessments set frequently by teachers. In exam years, it can feel like there's a constant pressure. Assessments looming around every corner. It's no wonder why students struggle with mental health as a result. Mental health is the most pressing issue affecting young people, and that will only change if decisive action is taken. We need to place a key focus on working to remove the stigma of mental health. Along with that, we need to campaign for improving our services, early intervention support, mental health first aid training, CAM's virtual waiting rooms. The solutions are there. We need the government to take action. Thank you.
Colleague from Yorkshire and Humber.
Hello, I'm Theo and I'm from Sheffield. Today I'm afraid I will be opposing this motion. Now, it's an undeniable fact that mental health is one of the biggest challenges facing not only young people in our country, but everyone, and in the last few years this has only grown. Despite this, however, by a logical and strategic standpoint, I believe it would be unwise to vote for mental health as our priority, as there are better ways to go around this issue, such as improving our education. For years and years, mental health has been voted a top priority, and almost nothing has been achieved. This is not due to the enormous effects that we've put into our campaigns not being enough, but it's because it's far too broad of a topic and to put all of our effort into as a whole. Through all of the other topics today, there's an opportunity to focus on mental health, as we've heard in all of the speeches, and I believe it would be better to concentrate our efforts specifically for a move to impactful change and achieve meaningful improvements, as we've not been able to do that before in more specific areas. So today I urge you not to vote this topic as our priority and pave the way for impactful changes for more positive mental health under other topics, focusing instead on the root causes and tackle why this is such a worsening issue in our society. So I implore you not to vote this topic and not repeat the ineffectiveness of the past. Let's change our approach and make a real difference through a different strategy. Thank you.
I call the colleague from Wales.
Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm Ellie Pickering, MYP for Monmouthshire. I must ask my fellow MYPs to vote for this motion, but why? When just 1 in 3 children and young people with a diagnosable mental health condition get access to NHS care and treatment, we are failing them. Childhood and adolescence is where these problems can be helped before they change and become ones more debilitating to a person's life. We need to step in earlier and provide the much needed support, not leave these vulnerable young people to the sentence of a long, long waiting list. How do these young people keep faith in us and the government when year after year they vote for this category and year after year they still have the same problems? This is still a significant issue, been on the ballot 6 times, and as such we should be voting on it with the same urgency. We need to stand up and say no more to the deterioration of health whilst waiting on a service. No more to young people who don't know who to turn to when they feel their mental health declining, and say we are here for you and are listening.
Member of the Parliament from the East Midlands.
My
My name is Darcy Griffiths from Bassetlaw in the East Midlands. Mental health is incredibly important and includes a person's emotional, psychological and social well-being, which impacts how we think, feel and act. If this is the case, then why do young people in the United Kingdom have their issues disregarded, leaving them to deteriorate with very little help? This is absolutely appalling, and this situation has left thousands of young people feeling ignored and disengaged, which we can clearly see with the highest cause of death in 2019 for people aged 5 to 34 being suicide. This has gotten even worse with the pandemic, which has greatly affected young people with mental health, with 83% of young people with a mental health condition saying that it has worsened with COVID-19. Our mental health has been pushed aside for far too long, and we need to see a change, starting with treatments for those who need it. As someone who is a part of a mental health charity, this subject is very close to my heart, and I urge for action to be taken and to take care of our young people.
I call the MYP from the Northwest at the end there. Yes. No, third row back. Who is just standing? Yeah.
Sorry. I'm Harley Smith and I'm one of the MYPs for Salford. You're overreacting, you're making a big deal out of nothing, and you're taking things too seriously. These were all things that I was told when I was going through a severe mental health struggle. This rabbit hole led me down a dark path that led to self-harm and suicidal thoughts. After this, I then got pushed around in a system that was made to simply get me in the door, make me smile maybe once, and get me out. But I couldn't, because I had gone through so much trauma in my life. I had gone through trauma that made it so that every moment when I tried to think about the events I'd been through, I suffered intensely. I went through trauma that made it so when I tried to do my everyday life and just live, it came back to me. I went through that trauma and now I'm having to go through repeated cognitive behavioural therapy because of it. I went through that trauma and the system almost failed me. Now, imagine how many other children are like me, how many other children don't have my voice, and how many other children this could affect. Imagine how many other children could have that trauma dealt with and picked up on earlier and not be belittled for having mental health issues. Thank you.
I call the colleague from the east of England. East of England. Yes?
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh. You're east of England? Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Whilst all these issues are very important today, I think an important thing to look at is education. Education is a vital key to all of these issues. It's all good and well for you to be able to feed yourself, but if you can't feed yourself with the mind, the people making the decisions are the ones who are causing these issues. The cost of living crisis. If people are educated about the causes of this, then it might not have been caused. If you look at mental health, it's because people aren't educated about it either, right? So I feel like if people are educated about all of these issues, then they won't be caused in the first place, because knowledge is power. Education sets you free, education sets me free, education is needed, not just for you, but for me. Thank you.
I call a colleague from London. Yourself, yes. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sakura, Member of Youth Parliament for Portsmouth, and we have to prioritise the mental health of young trans people. If 42% of LGBTQ plus young people thought about suicide last year, then why were 48% of them denied counselling when they needed it the most? This has to change, and this needs to change now. Many schools have made great progress with affirming trans identities. However, recent pronouncements from organisations like the Boarding Schools Association drastically undermine this progress. This further damages the mental health of trans young people. Interpretations of the Equality Act differ wildly across schools, and with woefully inadequate mental health support, our most vulnerable are suffering. This is not just an issue for trans young people, but my constituents have made it abundantly clear that they are passionate about it too. The role of the government should not be damaging the mental health of some of our most vulnerable people.
Thank you. I call the Member of the Youth Parliament from North Tyneside to conclude the debate.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Suicide accounts for 1 in 100 deaths globally. It's the 4th leading cause of death in individuals aged 15 to 29 years. Around 1 in 7 of the world's adolescents have a mental health disorder. That means that it doesn't just affect you. It affects your family, your friends, and all the young people who we are here to represent. I believe that continuing to ignore, overlook, and discount the mental health crisis is detrimental to both the future of our country and to our futures. And while we have unfortunately held this inexcusable apathy for too long and consequently reached a place where we cannot prevent this crisis, what we can do is use the power of youth voice to take action. In 2015, there was the first recorded reference to mental health in Parliament. Baroness Tyler of Enfield stated that, and quote, "For too long, the subject of mental health has been ignored, marginalised, or left to the realm of social experiment or institutional stigma," end quote. 7 years ago, we were at a point where mental health had been ignored for too long. Now, I can't stand here and tell you which of these topics we have debated is the most important. But what I can tell you is that we have the task of representing the young people in our boroughs. The topic of mental health was placed in the recurring issues section of the past 4 Make Your Mark reports. That is our sign to stop seeing it as some empty warning and start seeing it for what it really is, a cry for help from the people we are here to advocate for. I'd like to bring your attention to a previously mentioned sobering statistic. 1 person dies as a direct result of mental health problem every 40 seconds. 1 life is lost because that person could not get the help and support that they so desperately needed. Each of these debates lasts 30 minutes. 30 minutes is 1,800 seconds. 1,800 seconds is 45 lives. 5 debates, that is 225 lives. 225. That's 225 families, 225 friend groups, 225 communities. If this isn't a crisis, then please attempt the audacity to tell me what is. It's time to stop debating, it's time to take action, and it's time for us to make a change.
Order. I thank everybody for the contributions that they have made, not to just this last debate, but to the debates that have taken place during the whole course of our session. I'm sorry it's not always possible to get everybody in, but that can be the case in Parliament, I'm afraid. But thank you for all who tried, and I'm sure there will be other opportunities. But as I say, once again, thank you for all your contributions. The Youth Parliament will now vote on which of the 5 subjects that you've debated today you will select as your next national campaign issue for 2023. In the lobby, you will be given a ballot paper. You should place an X in the box next to the subject you would like to vote for and hand the completed ballot paper to the doorkeepers in the lobbies. Afterwards, perhaps we could just indicate, you all know who the doorkeepers are to look out for, you might indicate. Afterwards, please return to your place in the chamber. Those of you to my right should leave the chamber by the door behind me and turn left into the eye lobby. That is the eye lobby there. Those on my left, but those on the left should leave by the doors at the far end of the chamber and turn left into the no lobby behind you. And I know that we have House of Commons staff on hand to assist you. So, the division lobbies are now open. Order, order. I now have the results of the vote that you have just taken, and the results are as follows. The first debate, impact of discrimination on health, 24 votes. Environment and health, 29 votes. Education and health, 51 votes. Cost of living and health, 102 votes. And mental health, 30 votes. And that means that the Youth Parliament campaign for next year will be on cost of living and health. I can also confirm that cost of living and health will be launched as a House of Commons petition, and if it reaches 100,000 signatures, it will be considered for debate in the House of Commons. And I have no doubt whatsoever that you will all be going back to your constituencies and encouraging people to sign the petition. So I'm sure we will be debating it at some point soon. Order, order. I call the member of Youth Parliament from Westminster to read a message from the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My name is Caden Pradhan, and I'm the MYP for Westminster in London. Firstly, thank you all for the productive debate today. You'll hear a number of closing addresses and speeches this afternoon, and it is conventional for the sitting Prime Minister to write a letter to all MYPs on the day of the House of Commons sitting. And we were honoured to receive words from the Right Honourable Rishi Sunak, despite his inevitably busy first couple of weeks. I will now read the letter we've received. Dear members, I want to send my best wishes to all of you for the UK Youth Parliament sitting at the House of Commons on the 4th of November. I believe it is incredibly important for young people to have the chance to debate the issues that affect you and your families. The UK's Youth Parliament provides a unique opportunity to do just that. It's a chance to learn more about our democratic processes and give voice to the issues that are closest to your hearts. I apologise that due to time constraints, it will not be possible to join you, but I know that the cost of living and climate change will be high on your agenda. You can rest assured that these issues will be very much at the front of my mind this weekend. First, as the government continues its work to restore economic confidence and stability in a way that is fair and compassionate. Second, as I travel to COP27 and urge world leaders to take ever greater action to protect our precious planet. In tackling these issues and others, I am always concerned with protecting the interests of young people and the generations to come. So I look forward to hearing reports of your deliberations. Good luck for the debate. I hope you find the session both memorable and enjoyable. Warm regards, Rishi Sunak.
I now call, I'm sorry that Scotland appears to be leaving, I hope it's nothing to do with you. I now call the SNP spokesperson for Digital Culture, Media and Sport, John Nicholson.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker, and what a welcome from the Scotland benches. I start speaking, they walk out. Charming, eh? I can't tell you how surprised I am to find myself standing here at the dispatch box on the Conservative benches. This is not somewhere I've ever been, and it's probably the closest I'll ever get to being the Prime Minister. Although that said, the way the Tories are tanking in the polls, the SNP might well be the next government, who knows? I'd like to congratulate you on the debates that you've been holding. I've sat and listened to all of the mental health debate, and what struck me, Madam Deputy Speaker, is how succinct you all are, how you keep strictly to time, how polite you are, and how you clap like normal people, because, as Madam Deputy Speaker will tell you, we're not allowed to clap normally here. Instead, we've got to make the following noise if we agree with something, which isn't really the way normal people behave. I was first elected to Parliament in 2015 for the Scottish National Party. I represent Ochil and South Perthshire. Normally I sit over there. I'm the front bench spokesperson for digital culture, media and sport. I began my political career as a teenage student debater, debated at university. I was the Scottish, British Isles and World Debating Champion one particular year, and then I went off to work on Capitol Hill in the United States as a speechwriter for a very distinguished American senator called Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan. And then I returned to become a youth presenter, presenting a programme called Open to Question, and then going on to be a reporter in Newsnight, Panorama, Public Eye, and I was the main presenter in BBC Breakfast News, which was just horrific because I had to get up every morning at 3 o'clock in the morning and interview politicians. So I've now turned poacher and become a gamekeeper. I was the first BBC presenter, BBC One presenter, ever to come out and say that I was gay, which caused absolute horror, and it was the front page news in all the tabloids. And now I sit in a parliament which is, well, my benches, the SNP benches, are so gay, so LGBT, that we've now made Westminster the gayest parliament in the whole world. Now, you might have thought it was pretty gay already, given that the doormen wear tights, but no, that wasn't necessarily a sign of sexual orientation. But we've changed the atmosphere here at Westminster, and I think it's for the better. You lot sound just so much kinder than many of the voices that I hear in this place. And in the debate that I just listened to, I want to highlight a couple of contributions. The gentleman there who spoke so movingly about his own struggles with mental health. I thought it was an incredibly impressive speech. The young woman there who spoke about trans rights, which I found very affecting. Trans people are under most terrible attack at the moment, and thank you for raising that. My colleague here from Scotland, who was literally dressed as the St Andrews flag, thank you too for her contribution. I want to conclude just by saying that politics matters. Look at that sign behind you there. It's a memorial to Jo Cox, who was murdered because of her politics. It's an important business, the one that you're looking at. You can change people's lives. If you look at the way in which women now have the vote, there's discrimination in place to stop anti-LGBT prejudice, anti-disability prejudice. You can no longer be sacked for being disabled or gay. Women have equal rights. We've had 3 women prime ministers. So what you do, the deliberations that you have on a daily basis, will really change things. So never listen to anybody who says that politics doesn't matter. I hope a great many of you will go on to represent people in local councils, in the Welsh Senate, in Westminster and perhaps 2 in an independent Scottish Parliament. Thank you all for your contributions today. They've been moving and excellent. On a more regular basis for SNP MPs?
It's only a matter of time, I'm sure, John. And I suspect that a plane had to be caught by the delegation from Scotland. I now call the Member of Youth Parliament from Birmingham to provide closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm Hardeep Singh, MYP for Birmingham in the West Midlands. I would like to begin by expressing my gratitude to all the members of Youth Parliament and British Overseas Territory speakers for their excellent contributions, their efforts and their commitment. I'd also like to extend my gratitude to the Speaker, Madam Deputy Speaker, all of the great House of Commons staff, including the catering staff for feeding us, the police for keeping us safe, broadcast and communications for amplifying our voice beyond these walls, David Clark and Brett Theobald, the doorkeepers, led by Phil Howes, MPs for granting us permission to meet, the leader and the shadow leader of the House, Paul Scully MP, and John Nicholson, spokesperson for the SNP. I'd also like to thank the British Youth Council, our councils, our youth support workers, and the UK Youth Parliament Steering Group members. Giving us young people this opportunity here today has been terrific. We have had a tremendous deal of freedom to express ourselves, researching topics that are important to young people that have been identified through our national Make Your Mark ballot, the UK's largest youth consultation. More than 430,000 young people have played an active role and cast their votes, ranking health and well-being as their #1 priority, and a further 2,800 have participated in our focus groups to explore this issue in detail. UK Youth Parliament, success is an understatement. Over and above, our consultation has shown the influence and political involvement of young people and highlighted our place in our society. No debate and its speeches have been the same. Each voice has had something different to say and fight for. Throughout the hardships, tribulations, and turbulence of the difficulties, we as young people have held fast to our principles in our bid to convey our commitment. Some people think that young people do not play a significant role in politics or the world around them, but this is why we're here, to reject these claims, to speak for our constituencies, to uplift the voices of young people, and to bring about change to secure our place within history. We must work with our communities, politicians, local services to ensure young people have power in decision-making. It all starts with you, members of Youth Parliament. Let us make the national campaign a huge triumph. To conclude, let today not be the end of a fantastic session, but the beginning of a new era where young people are encouraged to speak their mind and make a positive contribution to our society. Thank you, Youth Parliament. It has truly been an honour.
Well, that was splendid concluding remarks there. Thank you to everybody who's spoken in that last session. And I feel that I cannot possibly add to all the thanks that our last speaker has just given, but I will do. So before I adjourn the House, I want to pass on my thanks to everybody who has facilitated today. Thank you to the members of the British Youth Council. Thank you to the Speaker's Office team for organising today's sitting. And a lot of work has gone into the preparation for today. Thank you to Phil House and his team of doorkeepers for ensuring it's smooth running. Thank you to Hansard and broadcasting for recording today's sittings. I think it is so important that we've been able to capture all your contributions, and I'm sure the enthusiasm and support that you showed for each other is going to show through on those recordings. Thank you to the clerks at the table who have diligently upheld procedure, and I did not have to intervene at all to with a few wise words at any point, because you all kept perfectly within the procedure of the House. Thank you to the Deputy Sergeant at Arms and all the Sergeant at Arms team for ensuring our safety for today. Finally, thank you to you all. You've been an inspiration to members of the House today, and the passionate contributions have been noted, recorded, and kept for future prosperity. I think you are all future leaders. I'm sure Mr. Nicholson would agree with me, but you have shown real commitment to representing your constituencies today, and frankly, that is what democracy is all about. So thank you for being here, thank you for your contributions, and I wish you well in the next year. Thank you.